Hey, you've tuned into Noir Tales, where I collect the strangest, creepiest, and most unbelievable real-life stories floating around the depths of the internet. Whether it's for background while you're winding down, or sharp focus during a late-night study session, I've got you covered. Some stories are just good for the group chat. Some would make your therapist shudder. But then there are dates that go so sideways, they're basically a plot twist with a pulse. Take this next story. Let's just say, forget the roses. These are garden variety red flags on steroids. Here's how one anonymous Redditor describes their most unsettling date. I don't go on many dates, but whenever I do, I have my own safety checklist. Meet only in public places, let friends or family know my whereabouts, park somewhere busy and close. It's become second nature, and this time, I was grateful for that. When this guy suggested we meet at his house for drinks and a movie, I politely declined. I insisted on a public place instead. There was a bit of back and forth. He kept circling back to his original plan, until I made it clear that it was either a cafe or nothing. Eventually, he agreed. He showed up in a two-door car, which felt insignificant at first, but turned out to be one of those small details you remember all too well later. Inside the cafe, things started off cordially enough. I ordered a soda. He seemed genuinely baffled and slightly annoyed that I wasn't drinking. I explained, again, that I'm not able to drink because of medication, and he went to the bar to grab himself a cider. As soon as he sat down, he brought up the idea of hanging out at his place again. I held my ground and suggested we just enjoy a drink here and move on. He got oddly defensive, claiming money wasn't an issue, but it would just be easier if we went back to his place. There was a tense moment. I tried to keep it light, joked, "You're not a serial killer, right?" He just stared at me for a little too long and said, "You don't think I'd hurt you, do you?" That was the point my instincts kicked in. Like every nerve ending in my body was suddenly on alert. Then he suggested, instead of driving separately, that I should ride with him. The catch? Because his car was full of packages in the front, I'd have to climb into the back of a two-door car. To say that didn't make sense is an understatement. I finally told him his insistence was making me uncomfortable. He looked surprised, excused himself, and, not long after, I saw him get into his car and leave through the cafe window. Can't say I ever felt more relieved to be ghosted. Thankfully, dodged a bullet situation. Friendly reminder, always trust your gut, and maybe stick to cars where you control the doors. Our next tale, however, takes an entirely different kind of twist. One that no amount of swiping could ever prepare you for. Because sometimes, we have so much in common, it's a little too close to home. This one started beautifully. Two people, similar vibes, easy chemistry. Then life decided to rewrite the plot entirely, and not in a good way. So, I started seeing this girl a few years younger. Everything seemed great, lots in common, easygoing vibe. Then, one evening, she calls me crying. Her dad just died. I did my best to help her through it. What else can you do? A few weeks pass, and my grandma rings with her own bad news. Her younger brother has died. Would I join the family for the funeral? I'll be honest, I didn't think much of it. My grandma and her brother had some kind of falling out over inheritance decades ago, so I'd never met him. Fast forward to the funeral. I look around and, you've guessed it, right there in the chapel is my date, looking about as shocked as I am. Turns out, her dad and my great-uncle are one and the same. Congratulations to me. Apparently, I'd just gone on a few dates with my aunt, who's younger than I am. Well, sometimes we have so much in common turns out to be genetically accurate. And the friend zone? Apparently, it can come with an entire family tree attached. Dating apps really do bring people together, just not always in the way you'd hope. On Tinder, you dream of matching with a solid 10. Someone so gorgeous your friends are jealous. But as it turns out, sometimes that 10 is hiding enough emotional baggage to fill a self-storage unit, and they might just make you unpack it all on the very first date. I matched with this absolute knockout. picture perfect, basically a model. He asked me to meet for coffee, but there was a catch. I had to pick him up. Okay, fine, he's hot. I'll play chauffeur. We end up going to dinner, and honestly, he's funny, charming, the whole package. Then, out of nowhere, he pulls out his phone and starts telling me about his son. His ex took the kid and vanished to Washington, and he hasn't seen him for months. Next thing, he's handing me his phone, opening up a folder with literally 300 photos and videos of his kid. He makes me go through every single one, providing detailed commentary for each. No joke, I was on a full slideshow tour of his fatherhood journey, complete with backstories and funny anecdotes I never asked for. By the end, Redditor just wanted to escape, but he kept texting me afterwards, like 8 or 9 times a day, until she finally had to block him everywhere. For the record, her friends all agreed. He was a perfect 10, even with the baggage. She just didn't realize I'd have to unpack all of it on the very first date. The lesson here? Sometimes the hottest Tinder matches come with the biggest suitcases and baby albums you never, ever signed up to binge watch. Swipe carefully out there and maybe ask about luggage size before committing to dinner. Most Tinder date red flags are pretty obvious. Then there are the ones you can't fully appreciate until your eyes are literally swollen shut. Sometimes you go in hoping for a spark and end up meeting a whole army of feral cats instead. It was only my second day on Tinder and my first ever date from the app. She seemed cute, fun, and invited me to a barbecue with her old coworkers. Not exactly traditional, but I went along. The party was fine, and she was definitely flirting. But after she left abruptly, she texted that I could have come over if I just asked. I spun my car around and raced to her place. On the way in, she casually mentioned her stray cats. Turns out, she had 15. She opened the door, and I was greeted by glowing eyes in the darkness, then hit by an almost physical wall of cat odor. The place looked like one of those hoarder shows, with cats perched everywhere and bins stacked high. She led me to her room, which reeked of bleach because she'd just scrubbed everything. Apparently, her idea of a romantic setting. We settled in for a horror movie, and nothing happened. She barely reacted to any advances. After almost an hour, I left, trying hard not to touch my face. That night, my eyes started itching. By the next morning, I could barely see. My eyelids were so swollen I had to call in sick and see a doctor. It took 5 whole days for the swelling to go down. I texted her to explain, but after that allergic disaster, she never replied. Pro tip: on Tinder, ask how many cats before you ask her sign. Because nothing kills the mood like a horde of strays and an emergency antihistamine run. And if your date's idea of setting the mood is industrial-strength bleach and 15 pairs of glowing eyes in the dark, maybe trust the instinct to keep driving. Meow. You know those people who say, "I wish life came with warning signs"? Sometimes Tinder dates come with so many red flags, it feels like you've accidentally wandered into a parade. Except every float has your name on it. I matched with a girl on the app. First thing I notice is a tattoo that reads, "Daddy, Mask Vibe." Okay, could just be a style choice, I tell myself. She explains she's generally more into girls, but decided to give me a shot anyway. We meet up, things move fast, classic hookup scenario, and by 3 a.m., she's gone without a word. A week later, same story. Only this time, she makes a specific request. Don't look her in the eyes, and she'd prefer doggy style. Easier to relax that way. My internal alarm system, at this point, is basically screaming. The pattern repeats a few more times before I start putting some distance between us. That's when my neighbor casually drops, "You're seeing her? Careful, she's got quite the reputation around here. If there were awards for property damage, she'd have a shelf full." Sure enough, the moment I start pulling back, the messages start flooding in. Walls of text about respect and dignity, voice notes dripping with pop psychology and drama. No direct threats, but the energy through the screen was a lot. Moral of the story? I now hold an unofficial PhD in ignoring red flags. Take a number, Ron Rivera. There's a new champion in town. If your Tinder date comes with more warning signs than a nuclear power plant, maybe, just maybe, it's time to evacuate, not stay for the after party. Sometimes daddy issues is literally a tattoo. Our next story is less of a date and more of a full theatrical production, complete with an opening act, a dramatic musical number, and a sidewalk intermission nobody asked for. Sometimes, hunger makes us do things we'd never normally do. But even the best dinner isn't worth it when the company comes with this many surprises. Matched with a girl, and for the first 5 minutes, things were intense. She started sharing stories about past struggles, some involving dangerous habits and difficult moments. I tried to be empathetic, but it quickly became overwhelming. She'd gesture around the bar, telling me she'd once managed to get all the guys here to buy her drinks, and laughed about draining my wallet at fancy restaurants. It was, to put it mildly, a little much for a first meeting. Still, I was hungry, so we moved next door for food. Midway through dinner, a casual joke from the waitress set my date off. She nearly started a scene, insisting she was being unfairly singled out. A bit later, still at the table, she abruptly began singing loudly about intimate personal details I did not expect to become a chorus. When we finally left, she went to every table in the restaurant and blew out the candles, and when I asked why, she just said she couldn't remember doing it. At this point, it was pretty clear things were off, but I let her convince me to say hello to her cats a few blocks away. On our walk there, she suddenly stopped, dropped her pants, and relieved herself right there on the sidewalk in her own shoes. I was speechless. When we eventually got to her place, after a whirlwind tour of her cats and a quick trip to the bathroom, she tried to get things moving in a more intimate direction. When I made it clear I was ready to leave, she was crushed. "You're just going to leave me, like everyone else." Definitely the wildest and most uncomfortable night out I've ever survived. There's an old saying, don't ignore red flags on a first date. If your date's evening arc goes from trauma dumping to impromptu street performance to that, maybe the hunger wasn't worth it after all. Some meals are best skipped. And just when you think you've seen the full spectrum of Tinder chaos, someone comes along who looks, on paper, like the most wholesome match you could ever hope for. He was basically a Hallmark movie protagonist. No drinking, no smoking, tight with his grandpa, dreaming of a career in meteorology. The first date at Starbucks? Genuinely pleasant. So pleasant, in fact, that I agreed to a second one. Rest 2. Ice cream, outdoor seating, easy conversation. I made some offhand comment about how girls tend to notice weird little things on guys. Calves, hands, that sort of thing. He went quiet. Then came the 4 words that should have been my exit cue. I probably shouldn't say this. Naturally, I pushed. First confession. A foot fetish. Okay, unconventional but hardly headline news. I asked questions purely out of curiosity. Could he date someone who wasn't into it? Flat no. Had he ever sought that out elsewhere? Yes. Back page. More than once. Still processing that when he dropped the next one. Have you ever heard of a crush fetish? He specifically told me not to Google it. I didn't. I never will. But he explained anyway. Level 1 involves watching someone step on invertebrates, bugs, that sort of thing. That was his thing. Level 2 involves vertebrates, small animals. We are not going there. And then, like a highlight reel I never asked for, my brain started replaying our first date. I had casually mentioned that my basement room had a bug problem that summer, and I'd been squishing them all day. His response, apparently, was that it really got him going. I had absolutely no idea. He'd also asked what shoes I usually wore. I mentioned moccasins, added that they made my feet smell, so I avoided them. His face lit up in a way I now deeply regret witnessing. "That turned me on so much," he said. I'd love to smell your shoes sometime. What followed was a series of increasingly specific, increasingly unwelcome statements about what, exactly, he found attractive about me, none of which I had signed up to hear over soft serve. I ended things politely a week later, told him I'd met someone. He seemed fine with it. Then, a few months later, 4 or 5 texts in a row asking for my help, offering to pay for foot-related services. Some shoes, definitely better left in the closet. I wonder what this guy felt when he saw those addictive videos with the hydraulic press. This is the first time I've heard of such a fetish, and you? I have learned the word crush. We'll do without add-ons. From unexpected fetishes to unexpected family planning, our next story proves that Tinder isn't just a dating app. A Redditor kindly shared a story from his bro that would be perfect for the paternity court show. I have a friend who decided to use Tinder exactly the way the app was designed for. Casual, commitment-free, no strings attached. He wasn't particularly into the girl he was seeing, but things worked well enough that he kept coming back for 2 months straight. Then came the day he decided to end it. He showed up ready to deliver a clean, firm goodbye. That's when she dropped the news. She was pregnant, and it was his. I told him immediately, get a DNA test. He refused. Old-fashioned, he said. He trusted her word. So he stayed involved, did the right thing, prepared for fatherhood with someone he didn't even like. Then the original plan, adoption, fell apart at the last minute. She changed her mind and decided to keep the baby. So now my friend is co-parenting with someone who irritates him, learning to swaddle and shake rattles on command. Then it gets better. Turns out she'd been claiming government benefits as a single mother. His name wasn't even on the birth certificate. The state started looking for the biological father. And that's when my friend had a very uncomfortable realization. After all those sleepless nights and diaper runs, he might not even be the father. The results are still pending. The story isn't over yet. So here's a life hack. When someone tells you, it's yours, maybe don't take it as a compliment or a fact. And if you think Tinder only dishes out awkward breakfasts or ghosting, trust me, there's always a plot twist waiting. Sometimes the most casual swipe right comes with the longest possible strings attached. Suit up, in every sense of the word. All right, from potential paternity drama to a different kind of unexpected situation. One that required Google, a bathroom, and a level of teamwork nobody prepares you for. Some Tinder dates end with bad conversation or awkward goodbyes. Others end with a Google search you never wanted in your browser history and an urgent need for basic first aid. Here's a hookup horror that really takes the prize for unexpected plot twists. I matched with a guy on Tinder that I kind of knew through friends, though we'd never hung out before. He came over, we got along, and things quickly moved into the adventurous territory. One night, in the heat of the moment, he asked if we could try something new, a little experimentation. I was open-minded and found the only item nearby that might work, a small, bullet-shaped personal massager. He encouraged me to keep going, and suddenly, poof, it was gone. At first, I thought he'd realize and take care of it, but nothing happened. After we finished, I asked, "Hey, where did that thing go?" Suddenly, we both realized it had disappeared. He rushed off to the bathroom to figure it out. There was a lot of confusion, a bit of panic, and a frantic search for solutions online. Thankfully, with some calm advice, the situation resolved itself, no doctors required, and the missing item turned up. The next morning, we awkwardly carried on like nothing happened. He even helped me with some chores before leaving. After that, things fizzled out between us, but at least it made for a legendary Tinder gone wrong story, one our mutual friends will never hear. When dating gets adventurous, a little preparation never hurts. Google is not just for recipe searches. It's also a useful tool when other silicone tools cause problems. How appropriate is a joke about black holes? Sorry. Once again, technology is failing humanity at the most inopportune moment. They say college is a place where you make unforgettable memories. Turns out, sometimes your friends are determined to make sure you really never forget them. Or your attempted sex life. We'd been talking on Tinder for weeks, the kind of slow build that makes the payoff feel inevitable. I asked my roommate if I could have the place to myself for the evening. He agreed, which, in our dorm, was practically a diplomatic achievement. Getting her in wasn't simple either. Our dorm had the security protocols of a mid-tier government facility. Sign in at the front desk, wait for clearance, then escort up. We managed. The room was quiet. The vibe was right. Things started moving in exactly the direction we'd planned. And then, out of nowhere, Let's Get It On started playing. Marvin Gaye, full volume, from inside the room. I tore the place apart looking for the source. Under the bed, behind the dresser, inside the wardrobe. 5 full minutes of frantic searching while the playlist cheerfully transitioned to I Just Had Sex. The mood, needless to say, was evaporating fast. I finally found the speaker, just in time for it to launch into a very recognizable adult film soundtrack. That was it. The evening was officially over. We got dressed, walked out, and were greeted by 6 of my friends, lined up in the hallway with the smuggest expressions I have ever seen in my life. The date ended. So did any chance of a second one. Sorry, Marvin. Not tonight. Sometimes the worst thing about a Tinder date isn't a bad match or an awkward goodbye. It's your own friends with a Bluetooth speaker and too much free time. Lesson learned. Before any romantic endeavor, always check under the bed. Not just for monsters, for speakers too. And just when you thought we were done, surprise! Consider this the after-credits scene of tonight's collection. Welcome to the Tinder Freak Show, where the weird gets weirder, the dates get shorter, and the stories somehow get even harder to believe. Not long ago, I was swiping through Tinder and spotted a profile that was just a black square for a photo, and a single letter as the name. The whole description read, "Please don't swipe yes on me. I'm just trying to catch my husband on here again." When the world of dating needs not love, but a full private investigation, Tinder becomes CSI, marital affairs. Honestly, respect the hustle, but maybe next time upgrade the profile picture. A black square isn't exactly going to make him swipe right in a panic. After that, I'd never look at a handshake the same way. I matched with a goth girl who honestly seemed really down to earth. Her profile was normal, we chatted a while, and decided to meet up for a casual walk in the park with our dogs. The weather was perfect, the conversation easy, everything you could want for a first meetup. Then, nature called her dog, right in the middle of the trail. I reached into my stash of doggy bags, handed one over, and watched in stunned silence as she just picked it up with her bare hand. No hesitation, no second thought. She walked 20 feet to the trash can, dropped it in, and wiped her hand down the back of her jeans like it was nothing. Let's just say I made sure our hands didn't get anywhere near each other for the rest of that walk. And if you're wondering, yes, the date ended there. Turns out there's cool goth, and then there's biohazard goth. Proof that sometimes the scariest thing on a date isn't the person, it's their hygiene.
For our next freaky detour, let's head to a bustling square in Europe, where one date took moving too fast to a whole new level. We had our first date at the biggest coffee spot in Munich's Marienplatz. So packed, you could barely breathe. She looked exactly like her photos, and honestly, things were going great for the first 3 hours. Lots of talking, a real connection. Until she suddenly dropped to her knees right in the center of the crowd and proposed to me. Yes, a marriage proposal. On the first date, every head in that coffee shop snapped our way. When I said no, obviously the crowd seemed almost disappointed. She burst into tears and rushed out, leaving me to awkwardly explain to over 100 strangers that, yes, we had just met about 3 hours ago. Either your charisma is operating at James Bond levels with a Bavarian accent, or you've just invented the most dramatic way to avoid splitting the coffee bill in Munich. And here's where it gets even better. Somewhere in the comments under this story, another user asked if this happened in October 2016. Apparently, his cousin witnessed the whole scene firsthand. The original poster's response? If it was the Richards on Marienplatz, then yes. And finally, our grand finale. Ladies and gentlemen, I present the famous chef as he described himself. Famous enough, apparently, to skip the nice restaurant and take her straight to a dive bar. Because true culinary legends don't need ambiance, just sports on TV and an audience for their ego. The evening started with sports, drinks, and an extended monologue about how incredibly famous he was. Charming opener. Things escalated from "you're cute" to, and I quote, "I'm going to make you bleed." She filed that under concerning and kept drinking, because at this point, what else do you do? He then invited a friend along, because nothing says romance like an uninvited third wheel. Outside, he went in for a kiss. She was drunk enough to go along with it. Fair enough, we've all been there. Then came the confession, currently facing battery charges involving his ex-girlfriend. But he totally didn't do it, obviously. Bill time arrived, so did a sudden, mysterious case of missing wallet syndrome. She paid, he promised to pay her back. Reader, he did not pay her back. And then just when she thought the evening had reached its absolute floor, he leaned in close. She assumed kiss. She looked down. He was peeing on her, in the street, on her. She did the only reasonable thing left to do, booked a hotel room, took the longest shower of her life, and retired the phrase famous chef from her dating vocabulary permanently. Somewhere out there, this man is probably still telling people he's famous, and maybe he is just not for his cooking. Consider this a Michelin star for most catastrophic first date in recorded history. Ladies and Gentlemen is a wrap on tonight's Tinder horror stories, from serial killer vibes and accidental family reunions to devices sabotage. If there's one thing this collection proves, it's that no algorithm, no matter how sophisticated, can fully prepare you for what's on the other side of that swipe. Stay safe out there, trust your gut, and if someone tells you they're a famous chef, maybe just order delivery instead. Until next time.